There are several situations in which you need to effectively solve a business case. You may be a business student and analyzing cases could be part of your assignments. Or you participate in a case competition and need to solve cases effectively and under time pressure. Or maybe you are preparing for a case interview in a management consulting firm and need to shine and stand out among other candidates by solving a case quickly and effectively on the spot. The challenge is that oftentimes business cases are long, complex, and are packed with information, facts, numbers, charts, financial statements, which are not always relevant and easy to sort through. Yet, you need to develop a clear, focused line of thought, which is especially difficult when you are reading the case under pressure. After teaching with business cases at universities for over 13 years, having analyzed tons of cases myself, and having seen business students both making common mistakes and finding great solutions in case analysis, here are my 6 tips on how to effectively solve a business case. Tip number 6 being the most critical, and if it's not followed, you won't be able to provide a solution to the case. Tip number 1. Clearly define the central problem. While the case may talk about many different things, like the company history, different decisions that the management has made in the past, you need to isolate the decision faced by the management team at the time of the case. In a nutshell, every case has some main issue that needs to be addressed. Think of every case as a snapshot of the company's situation at a given point in time. So correctly identifying the main problem at that point in time is crucial to successfully solving the case. Normally, you can get a sense of what decision is on the table by reading the first few paragraphs of the case and then the conclusion on the last page. The main problem is exposed there in some way. This does not mean that by just reading the introduction and the conclusion, you will be able to clearly identify the main problem. Usually it will crystallize for you only after doing some more analysis by reading further through the case. However, there will be a hint at the main issue at the beginning and at the end. As you practice solving more and more cases, you will begin recognizing patterns and typical problems companies tend to face. Another thing to note about the main issue is that it is not always a negative situation that needs to be solved, like the company is losing market share to competitors, product failures, or financial losses. In some cases, the company has been doing really well and has a myriad of opportunities in front of it, and then it is management's job to decide on choosing the best course of action among many attractive ones that will lead the firm to a successful future, and this decision may have a lasting impact on the company. So the best way to define the main issue of the case is to put yourself in a position of the company's CEO. Understand holistically, from a big picture perspective, the situation the company is facing at a given point in time and clearly formulate the problem. It's critical that you do it correctly, as you need to focus on the right problem to ultimately find the best solution for the case. Tip number 2. Apply frameworks in your analysis. As you read through the case, it's easy to get overwhelmed by all the information the case throws at you, some of which is more relevant to the situation at hand and some less relevant. That's where frameworks become helpful. For example, for business strategy cases, we use well-known frameworks such as Porter's 5 Forces for industry analysis, SWOT to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, value chain analysis to understand the internal organization, or resource-based view to figure out the competitive advantage. Other disciplines, like marketing, have their own frameworks. These frameworks, while not always perfect, are very helpful in synthesizing complex information scattered throughout the case. By sorting the information and attributing different facts and numbers to corresponding framework components, you can gain clarity and get to the right conclusions in your analysis. After you have completed your analysis with the help of frameworks, you are ready to clearly formulate and fine-tune the central problem of the case. Tip number 3. Don't forget to look at the financials. No matter how the company's situation is explained in the case, the evidence of its performance lies in the financials. For example, the case may portray the company in a positive light, but a look at the income statement in the exhibits can reveal that it's losing money and is not profitable. Financial results and potential earnings play a big role in making a decision about what business approach to use, so we can't ignore the financials. Learn how to read basic financial statements and always take a look at them during the analysis, particularly the income statement. Tip number 4. Make sure to provide relevant alternatives. When doing case analysis and solving the case, you're often asked to consider different options for solving the problem, or in other words, alternatives. Unfortunately, I see often enough students providing alternative solutions that are disconnected from the main issue or problem of the case. For example, the central problem of the case could be related to losing market share to competitors in the United States, but as an option, students may suggest that the company could enter the Chinese market and pursue it aggressively. This would not solve the problem in the US, and if anything, it would exacerbate it through distraction, as the company would channel its resources and efforts to succeed in the Chinese market rather than focusing on solving the problem it faces in a domestic market. So each alternative presented must be a viable candidate for a final recommendation. Sometimes the reason the alternatives are detached from what the case is really about is because the central problem was not identified correctly to begin with. Tip number 5. Show your thought process and analysis. Whether you're submitting a school project, competing in a case competition, or going through a case interview, your instructor, your judges, or your potential employer are most interested in your thought process, your insights, and how you conduct your analysis. So be explicit in showing how you arrived at your conclusions. Your logic, your insights is what sets you apart and makes your analysis unique by showing off your distinctive ability to make sense of a complex situation. So don't assume that things are obvious, that everyone thinks the way you do, and be sure to show your thought process. For example, when you present alternatives in the previous tip, make sure to explain advantages and disadvantages of each of them and how you choose one of them to become your recommendation. Tip number 6. No matter how brilliant your thought process is, your final recommendation must solve the problem. Any case analysis is normally concluded with a recommendation. Imagine if you're hired by a client company as a consultant in hopes that you find a solution to their problem, which they obviously can't figure out on their own. And they're paying you big money for your expertise. But at the end of your presentation, your recommendation solves a completely different issue and leaves them with no solution to the burning problem they hired you to solve. To them, it would mean a waste of money and doesn't give them the outcome they want. So that's why it's super important to correctly identify the problem, keep laser focus on it throughout your analysis, and to provide an effective solution to it. For example, if a problem is losing market share to competitors, your recommendation must demonstrate how the company can gain market share. If the problem was about overcoming consistent losses and reaching profitability, your recommendation must demonstrate how profitability will be achieved. If there is no real problem, but rather the case is about choosing the best path for the future among many opportunities, you must explain the results that the company can achieve by pursuing the chosen path after you've evaluated different alternatives. These are my 6 tips on effectively solving a business case. Good luck!